So much work all these days. Well, we will not blame us about that. We will not punish us too much. Anyhow, welcome to everyone to this session that has been organized by several people across the Alliance, but under the leadership of Universidad Autónoma de Madrid, my colleague Alejandra Gámez, and then I will introduce you later on some others like Silvia Arias, who is already in the table, and Ruth Cobos, and myself. I'm Nacho Rodriguez, and I will be just simply conducting a little bit the whole session and trying not to disturb too much to my colleagues and the content that we want to share with you. Today, we are going to talk about something that we have been talking quite a while, and including this morning. The title perhaps might be a little bit misleading, or perhaps not. Pathways for Competitiveness. The role of alliances in bringing skills to all learners. Early this morning, we had another session on lifelong learning and the role of universities at the European level. And the work, the incredible work that in the last 2 years and a half, the expert group on lifelong learning, led by Pascal, who is also here, thank you very much, Pascal, for joining us, have been done. Today, what we are going to do is to try to wrap up what we have done. And what can we do in the future? As you know, a few months ago, a proposal for the next 2 years, the so-called CIVIS 2.1, have been submitted to the Commission. And we didn't that proposal, we have devoted in the parlance of a European project, and I'm not going to stand on that parlance because it's terribly boring for everyone. We have designed a work package on competitiveness and skills. What is that? Actually, basically, if the clicker works, and it doesn't, but there is a magic key here that helps us a lot, is the attempt of CIVIS to align to some of the current public policies in Europe. Public policies that expect from universities, and most particularly from European alliances, to provide answers to questions. What is the question? We are behind. Who? Others. I'm not going to enter on these speculations that very important people like Enrico Letta, former Prime Minister of Italy, Draghi, also former Prime Minister of Italy, and many more prepared people in Brussels have done. But they have reached the conclusion that we are behind in Europe in terms of competitiveness with others. What is the role of the universities there? Enrico Letta and Draghi, in their reports, they identify that we have gaps on skills. And there is where higher education is called to play a role. Which role? Technically speaking, the role of a provider of those skills, but also an instrument, an actor on identifying or helping identifying those skills. So this, thank you very much. This approach in the future Work Package 5 in CIVIS 2.1 to competitiveness and skills is about that, to integrate what many people in our teams have already done in the last years, and then we'll have a tour d'horizon on how this has been done, and to try to escalate it in terms of positioning CIVIS and our universities as a reliable actor in this work of filling the gap. During these years, we will have the possibility to discuss if there is a gap and how the gap should be filled, but that's not the aim of our work. Our aim is just simply to put together our universities on a common objective and common grounds to develop together another piece of the so-called CIVIS education portfolio. When we talk about bachelor, master's, and joint degrees, we are doing the same thing. We try to align with European policies. In that case, the European degree label and the joint European degree. Here, we will talk about the European approach to micro-credentials and the union of skills, which is a public policy that the Commission has imagined to follow the diagnostics by Ericoletta and Draghi. And always with keeping in mind something that Professor Letta has mentioned several times. Next to the 4 freedoms that we know already exist in Europe, to add a 5th one, the freedom of knowledge. For us, this is about transferability, recognition, and many other tools that we all know because we have been, some only a few years, as my students here, others more, seeing how Bologna process have introduced a number of tools and so on and so forth. So, what is the outline and rationale of what we want to aim to do in the Work Package 5 in the future CIVIS? To make CIVIS offer flexible, stackable, and sustainable. We will end a little bit on these words later. To innovate, also. This we saw with the design of joint bachelor's, master's, and doctorates. However, in this field of filling the gap of skills, perhaps we have to think a little bit different on how we innovate in teaching and learning. Micro-credentials as the tool to help, to help building the 5th freedom, a common concept that helps to cross borders, a Schengen of knowledge, a Schengen of skills, or a new euro, perhaps. Pedagogical backbone, yes. What is extremely remarkable in this public policy of the Union of Skills? In the European degree label or joint European degree, we compete with universities. With other universities in fair competition, but we compete with them. Here, we compete with many other providers that are not universities, and perhaps they have been faster before than us, filling the gap. So if we want to make clear what is the role of universities and more widely what is the role of European alliances in filling the gap, we have to distinguish ourselves. What distinguishes ourselves from Amazon as a provider of skills, Facebook, Microsoft, and many others? Are we different? I believe we are, but we have to put it in writing. We have to make it clear to everyone. We have to make it clear for the future learners. So, now I'm giving the floor to Alejandra Gamet, who this year has been the leader, the academic leader of Work Package 11 in CIVIS 2. I didn't want to use the parlance of work packages too much, but that was the main engine of CIVIS to think about new learning pathways, flexible pathways, and so on and so forth. When we started, the European approach to micro-credentials did not exist. It was brought into life in 2022 when we started the work, not when we planned CIVIS 2. So we are sometimes in uncharted territory, and we should not be afraid of that. Actually, it is one of the aims of the alliances to be laboratories precisely when things change, like the way we define how we provide a high-quality education in Europe. So, Alejandra, thank you very much.
Thank you, Nacho. Okay, thanks. And good morning, everyone. So, as Nacho was saying, one of our missions as Work Package 11 was to introduce and enhance modularity within CIVIS. And this is what has been our work during these years. And we are very proud of the work of all of you that have been improved this catalog that we will show you in a bit. And before that, I just want to make a distinction between what means modularity, because for some, even academics, students, we already are confused at some point of what modularity means and how we can integrate this in our educational courses. How can we integrate this if we are teachers and academics in our own programs? And this is something that we all can contribute to enhance and to build. And the origin of modularity in CIVIS were the micro-programs. The micro-programs are it's another learning pathway, quite easier compared to micro-credentials at the beginning in terms of using what we already had as already pre-existing courses, and they were possible to stack and to create something bigger. So it's, as I mentioned, a learning pathway, and also the mission is to create something bigger, broader educational offer. But in the way of having micro programs that were coming from CIVIS 1, there are 2 micro programs that I will show you in a bit. The micro-credentials came into place thanks to all the new directions from the European Commission, as just Nacho has mentioned, with the Union of Skills, the approach to micro-credentials, etc. So what's a micro-credential? A micro-credential is the formal certification, which is very important, and also is digital certification of learning outcomes that had to be very, very well structured before the micro-credential is created, that are acquired through a small volume of assessed learning. So it's something very well defined. It comes from the European Commission, and it's very important for lifelong learning, that, as you probably have heard in the previous session by Pascal, and also very important to create new paths for educational offers through stacking different learning outcomes. So, no. Here it is the portfolio of the CIVIS modular educational offer that we have. As I was mentioning, microprograms was the first type of modularity introduced by CIVIS. And there are 2 microprograms from CIVIS 1 that are already are existing, because they are in one of them already there are students enrolled, and they were coming from, I think that I'm going to put everything because I think it's not well detailed. Oh, it's too fast. Sorry. Well, in terms of modular educational portfolio, we have these 2 micro-programs that are inherited from CIVIS 1, and that one of them is still alive. We have also 2 other micro-programs that were 2 flagships programs from Hub 5 that are also important programs in the CIVIS offer, along with 5 doctoral programs and 5 master programs. They are coming from 2023 through the Hub's incentivization programs. And then came something that marked a difference in creating educational offer within CIVIS. And what was that? Was the launch of educational calls within CIVIS. And this was the best strategy that we could use to create new programs, not only refer to modular offers, that as I'm going to show you later, but all type of programs. In the first call from 2024, there were different incentivized programs, like 1 bachelor program, 5 macro-credentials, 1 MOOC, 1 call, and 1 online asynchronous course. So the success of these calls was, as you can see, very essential and very, very high, and allow us to create programs that already are part of our offer and are going, some of them are already starting to be, already developed and to be launched. And even that we were very successful with this call, the next year there was a second call that was more focused on modular offer and also in the thematics that we identified as prioritized for CIVIS. And it gave all these type of programs 1 modular learning unit that has approved, 1 call, 1 doctoral module, 7 micro-credentials, 3 doctoral programs, 6 master programs, and 1 bachelor, again, joint bachelor. So as you can see, the strategy of using calls has been very successful and has allowed us to increase the educational catalog of CIVIS in the last 2 years. So, let me see, no. Okay. And this is the CIVIS educational portfolio, in this case not regarding to only modular offer. We have the bachelor programs, doctoral programs, and master programs. This is something also that has been incentivized and with a lot of success. And the important also thing in regarding modularity here is that modules can be integrated in this type of offer. This is the important thing with modularity. You can have micro-credentials that can be by themselves alone and have their impact, for example, for lifelong learning purposes, but they can also be part of established programs. And regarding modularity, we have the 2 micro-programs from CIVIS 1 and the 2 from High 5, and all these micro-credentials, some of them in a very developed stage, as you are going to see from our examples that we are going to present. So, sorry? Oh, okay, of course, yes. Yeah? Have any question or something? So this is the final micro-credential. This is going, I can advance that this is going to be part of our deliverable. That is something that is public, is going to be public from the European Commission. And the portfolio, at least from the modularity, is going to be our part, and the other parts will be from the other work packets. So I'm going against, no? Yeah. We still, yes, and now. So here we have also, which is part of modules, the COILs, the modular learning unit, the doctoral modules, that the asynchronous online course, and also the MOOCs, that are also part of this modular offer. The term module sometimes is quite broad to encompasses different types of programs. So this is the final catalog of the educational offer that CIVIS has created during these phases, CIVIS 1 and CIVIS 2. And we now have identified the success tools to get here, like the calls and incentivized programs. I'm going to leave the floor to Nacho.
Thank you, Alejandra. As you see, it's too much information to have all these educational portfolio, but what tell us the educational portfolio? It tells us that we didn't have any strategy at the beginning. We wanted to do things together, things. The word things is so vague sometimes. But in the way, a number of things happen. The European joint degree happened. The European approach to micro-credentials happened. So we have a chaotic portfolio, but as chaotic as should be that we, for the first time, 11 universities plus our associate partners in Africa joined together, and everyone has a concept on everything. Tübingen had micro-programs, which was a concept difficult to understand in Autonoma. Others have modules on MOOCs that for some MOOCs were one thing and for others were other thing. What we have now, after all these years, we have a process of standardization of concepts. Sometimes we have help. You know, for instance, in the joint European degree, CIVIS participated in SMART, one of these projects to define the criteria for the future joint degree. Other times, we have provided small blocks by adapting to the situations. The calls of education actually was our tool to adapt. Each call added something. In the first call in 2004, it was very general, joint programs. The second call in 2025 was joint programs aligned with the future criteria of the European degree label. Micro-credentials as short, intensive programs aligned with a certain way of certification because we needed a common language. And sometimes it's very difficult to find a way to communicate. We have disparity of concepts. Pascal and the work of the expert group, actually 2 years ago, they did this work. to try to understand what each university understood for a micro-credential or even lifelong learning, and how lifelong learning was translated in each institution. Now, what we propose for the next 2 years, and that's the basic aim of this meeting, is just to find what makes us common. And those are the public policies of Europe. We may discuss them. We may even think, oh, these people do not know what the university is writing that, but at least we have a common base to work together, align our academics and staff together, and to develop new joint education next to the other joint education that you have seen, bachelor's, master's, and doctorates. And by doing so, to provide answers about the role of universities in filling the gaps, in lifelong learning more generally. And not only lifelong learning. Anyhow, now we go for some examples on this educational portfolio. Examples that are already being piloting. So they are recruiting student learners, if I may use the most proper word in this context. They are recruiting them. They have been designed alongside the guidelines of the European approach to micro-credentials to see how far we can develop that jointly. We have found several problems, like any other joint education that you can imagine, and most of you work on several of them. But however, it seems that we are finding a way to move together to have a new call for education in December of this year, and to have everyone reading the call a common understanding of what we are proposing and what they can propose. So the first example that I really want to mention is the micro-credential civic engagement making a positive impact on the world from the university. In this case, this is a very good example of how we are evolving. Civic engagement has been the subject of CIVIS for many years, and Silvia Arias, who is here and coordinates this micro-credential, may give you some words about that. And this is the escalation to align the work of this expert group, in this case, and all their work into an envelope that eventually might be recognized everywhere. How to make the work, internal work of an alliance, something that can escalate outside the alliance and adds to that educational portfolio. Silvia.
Okay, thank you, and good morning, and thank you for joining us today. Well, with my colleagues from the Civic Engagement Expert Group, most of them are here today, we are going to explain you about how to create a micro-credential. In our case, the micro-credential was about civic engagement. So we have the goal to bring skills to the members of the Alliance, skills on how to learn, how to set up civic engagement inside the campus. So we created a micro-credential, very dynamic, and we hope very inspirational for everybody, just to understand and to get the needed skills to set up this civic engagement inside our campus. Well, why we are working on civic engagement? We think as a group, and it's a must of our universities as social responsible institutions, but civic engagement is also in the core of the CIVIS Alliance, of course. So we thought that starting with this kind of micro-credential will be very host, but all the members for the Alliance. So, so we decided to jump to the swimming pool, and I say jump because we didn't have very clear how the path will be, and we have to be honest, it was a very long and a very complex journey, but also very rewarding at the end. We learned a lot. No.
It's the other one.
Okay.
Okay.
So here you can see the contents of the micro-credential. It's divided in several modules, and we address in every module a topic. Okay, so we choose this topic: service learning, volunteering, apply and get research, cultural heritage, gender issues, diversity and inclusion, open labs, refugee and migrants. And we also invited the University of Wits with University in South Africa to give us also the African perspective. So we addressed these topics because we had been working together as a group, a civic engagement group during CIVIS 1, and we knew that these topics are in the core or are very interested for everybody inside the CIVIS Alliance. So we thought we could start this first edition. We will have more editions. We know, who knows, but we hope. So we decided to start with these topics. All the topics has the same structure. So you can see module 5 in the gender issues. So every module is very similar. At the beginning, start here. So we explain an introduction was the concept of gender issue inside the university, and then let's dive in. So we explain very deep what's the meaning of the topic, and an inspiration library also, and also a quiz, and also to evaluate the module. All the modules are very, very similar. So before giving the floor to my colleagues, just to tell you something about the path, the journey there are some pros and there are some cons. There are more pros than cons. But the cons was very difficult and very complex to organize, and so many universities involved. I think we are 8 or 9 universities involved this micro-credential, so it was difficult. Also, the administrative stuff was very difficult was the first time we were doing something like this, so at the beginning it was difficult. Language barrier is not a con, because we didn't know what the language to use inside the micro-credential, and we decided to use our own language sometimes, but then to be inclusive, of course, it's translated in English, and of course the administrative burden. But also the prompts, we got an international experience. A CIVIS Alliance is quite important, but we also, and probably this is the most important for us, is that we create a very good networking all together. And of course, this is in the core of inside an alliance, and we got to work together to solve together a lot of issues. Probably it created the pillar to create more. We know how to work together, and we are very inspired now to work together more in the long term. So I will give the floor to my colleagues, 3 of them. They will give you some, very briefly, they are the coordinators of one of the modules. It is, from Tübingen is coordinating the service learning module. Filia is coordinating the applied research, and Leah is coordinating the migration module. They will explain you very briefly what they are doing on the micro-credential.
Thank you. As Silvia already said, it was a very difficult process, very complicated, because it was also the first time. And if you also want to do something similar, please choose one person, like we had Silvia here, the one that coordinates the whole work with the reminders and the emails, and with her patience to wait for the content from our side. So thank you again for that. Yes, I was responsible for the service learning module. Perhaps also to say, in this micro-credential, our target group are the staff of our university. So our idea was, before starting with outside the university, let's start with our own staff, our people, and transform, or try to transform, our mindset in our own universities. In the service learning module, we target the staff of the university in the role of the lecturers. And the idea is here, lecturers that want to tackle different civic engagement fields, that really want to work on challenges in the society together with the students and together with the community partners. How can they do that? And with that, service learning is how we find a wonderful methodology to apply in your classes, in your master project, bachelor projects, or whatever, to work together as a community of lecturers, students, and community partners to really solve topics. And because we had also the theme with competencies, in that way you don't just talk in a theoretical perspective about challenges, you really work with the students, you apply also practical skills, and you gain practical skills, and you do also a service for the society. The whole content of the service learning module is also based on the wonderful work with the colleagues in the service learning expert group, where we created also a guideline for lecturers, and will come also the guideline for the community partners. You will find here, and that's a structure in all modules, videos where students and also lecturers and community partners share their experiences with this methodology, and not only the good sides, also the challenges. So it's really an honest videos, so to say. You will find tools, guidelines, how you can design on your own a service learning. And at the end, there are also some puzzles and some quizzes, because it's also very important in this micro-credential that we can know that the persons that register have really gained the competencies to have then also the certificate for it. So please take a look. The registration deadline will start.
I will give you some tips.
You will give some tips, exactly, and you are very welcome for that. And now to the next module.
Thank you. I would like to also to thank Sylvia for the excellent coordination of this project, and all of my colleagues in the expert group of civic engagement for this important collaboration. Along with my colleague Viorel Mihaila from the University of Bucharest, so University of Bucharest and University of Athens, we were responsible for the applied and engaged research section. What we tried to do is to connect the University Civic Engagement to engage research, participatory research. There is a section of why this matters, why is it important, how can participatory methods be of use and contribute to civic engagement projects. The people involved, there is, of course, you know, these are projects that are shaped and they're co-designed with the communities. It's work that is done with the community. There is a section with the particulars of the co-designing, collecting the data, analysis and dissemination of the research material. We talked a lot about the challenges involved in this matter, the role of the institutions in supporting this type of projects. So you are also going to find some interesting interviews from experts in the field. I know that Ken Skeldon is here with us today. And we hope that you will enjoy this unit. Thank you. I'll give my to Lea.
Hello, everyone. So I will join my colleagues to thank Sylvia for her great job during all the process. What you have seen, it was a long journey, as it was mentioned, but it was an interesting one and inspirational one. So on my side, I was coordinated the module 8 on refugees and migrants, and it's you hear about different kind of modules for teaching, for maybe more research. This one is maybe more practical. It's really about how universities can set up integration programs in the campus. So it's I built this module, of course, on scientific data, but also with the aim of what could universities do in terms of facilitating integration of migrants. So I hope you will feel also inspired to put in place such programs, because what I have done is to base the recommendation on the needs of migrants. That's what also makes sense with what Sylvia explained with participatory research. So it was really this idea of taking the needs of the principal beneficiaries to consider also what the hurdles they are facing and what could be done in our universities, because also, so what you said, we think that we can also have an impact inside of our campuses, of our institutions, and that would be maybe one way of having a very concrete impact on people's life. So that's, if I may also add, it was quite challenging also to make the module very vivid and I would say inspirational, I hope, because I'm used maybe to teach that topic and to work on this, and it was also a challenge to present something quite technical in an inspirational way. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sylvia, and thank you very much, all the team. What is micro-credential again? We have a definition. The European Commission gave us a definition, but it's a complex definition. But this team have been able to give content already to the definition first. It's something brief. It's something designed out of a societal need. They have been able, in their field, to identify the societal need. A societal need that requires some skills for professionals to tackle. And they have to define the skills. And according to that, they began to define the content, the whole teaching and learning process. But they are not content with defining the teaching and learning process, but also with the assessment. They want to prove that learners in the course have acquired the competences and skills that the course itself promises. And by doing so, according to some European standards, the certificate that the learner got is easy to be recognized. Let me, before going to another example, let me go for something that everyone knows here. Most of you, in your careers, have been asked to prove that you have a C1 in English or a C1 in French. It has become common parlance what means a C1 in English in terms for the employers. If I ask a future candidate for a job, a C1, I assume they have these skills in writing, listening, and so on forth in that language. Even, and sometimes, they don't care who has issued the certificate if it's proven that it's an authority that has the legitimation to issue the certificate. But we have, in Europe, reached the level to understand, even at the vulgar level, not the high academic thing, what is a C1? With other skills, it's much difficult. Europe has developed a number of European frameworks on skills, try to help us to define that for the future recognition. The C1 in English corresponds to a European framework for languages. There are many others. Most of our work, actually, is also identifying different targets of beneficiaries that need, perhaps, that upskilling, reskilling, acquisition of skills, not perhaps informal, but also perhaps in informal education. In the case of this micro-credential, it was the staff. The staff of our universities confronted with a certain need that they need to tackle, and they provide precisely that process of acquisition of the skills, certifying according to certain standards for the professionals to get recognition. Even if they stop working for our universities and they go elsewhere, and they can provide in their curricula, in their digital curricula, that they have already accumulated. And they have, let's go back to the expression lifelong learning, they have not stopped learning after the degree. They have tried to update themselves according to a society that changes. And the micro-credential is just that, the envelope. So for those that still think, oh, what is a micro-credential? What is the difference with a micro-program or a module? It's just the envelope. No one discussed here what is a bachelor diploma. Let's begin thinking in envelopes, because this envelope has certain features. And when designing the course, we have to follow the features for eventually the envelope to be useful, to make it possible to put it in the post office and go to the destination, the future employer or another entity recognizing that the learner has accepted these skills. But at the same time, this example is about how CIVIS has evolved. This was the product of the work of an expert group that a few years ago never thought in making a micro-credential. They didn't know what was a micro-credential to begin with. There were many other evolutions. In CIVIS, too, we created some structures, we call it hubs, around some themes that we thought, again with this line of tackling societal change, that were strategic, key. One was Hub 5, that tried to tackle precisely the challenges of digital and technological transformation. They got incentives, as our colleagues in the micro-credential civic engagement got them, to begin developing or imagining how to make envelopes. When they started, the micro-credentials did not exist. So, but they began thinking in something that is key, and it is in the DNA of the micro-credentials, how to keep path with a quick change. One of the main criticisms that universities have is that we are slow to adapt. As I mentioned before, in the race of lifelong learning and as providers of learners of new skills or upskilling or reskilling, we are late. Others have been in the market, I'm sorry for the expression, before us. And we need to imagine how to adapt, because we need to be flexible in something that normally will take time. Of course, we call it quality assurance. But how to imagine quality assurance in a more flexible way to adapt and to design more flexible and adaptable academic offer? Our colleagues in the Hub 5, they began thinking, oh, it is possible legally to introduce modules more flexible in our current formal offer? Or it's possible just to begin developing modules and eventually to stack them. They began doing this before the European approach to micro-credentials was in full swing. Or even, because we are universities, how we prepare on different transferable skills our PhD researchers, in a context where PhD perhaps is not valorized in society as it should be. How we prepare our PhDs for the labor market, once perhaps the educational labor market is limited. Become a teacher and a researcher. Is the doctoral degree enough? Should we accumulate in their portfolio, in their CV, something else? After much thought and discussions, they got eventually a solution. In the educational portfolio, you saw that in the last call, 2025, there was a doctoral module. That doctoral module is still a doctoral module, but now it's a micro-credential, because they discover that in order to make it attractive and recognizable everywhere, they need to use an envelope that could be recognized in every single post office in Europe and beyond. So what it was initially just a short course for PhDs, now is still a short course for PhDs on certain skills that my colleague Ruth Kobos will tell you in a moment, but put it in the envelope and with the sale of the micro-credential. I will let you talk a little bit about the sale, but now Ruth will describe this new initiative that they have been developed within the Hub 5. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nacho, for this opportunity, and thank you very much to the audience for being here. In the design of this micro-credential is a doctoral module. We are 8 universities, 6 from Europe, a national and Cappadocia University of Athens, University of Glasgow, University of Bucharest, University Sapienza di Roma, Universitat Salzburg, and University Autónoma of Madrid from Europe, and 2 other universities from Africa, from South Africa and from Uganda. So we are, most of my colleagues that are involved in this doctoral module are now in another activity in the botanical garden, in the journey of technological and so on. So it was a pity because both events were at the same time. So in this doctoral module is divided in 10 workshops. The 3 first one are in initial information, initial knowledge to the PhD student, because the main idea, the main aim of this micro-credential is to give to the PhD students tools, knowledge, all the things that they need to use artificial intelligence in a proper way, in an ethical way, in their PhD dissertation, in their research. So we have, this is initial topics or workshops, and then we have artificial intelligence applied in different areas, in the area of health, in the area of geography, in the area of education, with multimodal learning analytics approach, and moreover, at the end, in the area of economic, of course, and at the end, the last workshop is the workshop where they have to do the final work, research work in this doctoral program, because during each workshop, they are going to receive knowledge, how to use artificial intelligence in their PhD dissertation, as I told you, and they have to create, at the end, a paper, and they have to present this paper related with the area of artificial intelligence applied in their research area, different areas. So I thanks to all my colleagues that we are starting with the design of this doctoral model. If you have later more questions, I can answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruth. There is something that we really want to call your attention. Look at the top there, for ECTS. It's part of the envelope. The European approach to micro-credentials, the current one, are guidelines, but they are guidelines using Bologna tools. Why reinvent anything? We have already one, which is ECTS, but we need to use it in order to help develop the whole package in a recognizable, eventual recognizable way. The ECTS gives us also a mandate. It's not just simply using a certificate because people attend a course. The ECTS is about the process of formative learning. It's about engaging the student. The learning in this case, which we require, the definition, the actual design, perhaps in a different way we do. But how we are going to do it? And that's the main problem when we are now confronted with a new envelope, if I may continue using this small metaphor, that perhaps is not yet known at every level and perhaps is subject to discussion. I hope no one is going to discuss anymore what is ECTS. You know that there was a time that people discussed what was an ECTS. But increasingly, we use ECTS. Even if some universities don't use them, but eventually to collaborate with others, they need to find that common element for the translation. For those that perhaps I'm getting old, so I know a little bit of that. My hair is increasingly gray. Well, at the end of the 19th century, I was not born in the 19th century, to be sure, someone tried to imagine how to unify Europe, and they thought, we need a common language. And they said, let's invent it, Esperanto. Esperanto, who has a mixture of everything. ECTS is our common language. It is our common language, and it will help this common language, it will help also with those that are not in Europe. They are not part of the Bologna process. Not because this language is much better than other languages. It's just simply because we found a common way of communicating. We use English, but sometimes we use English in very peculiar, different ways. The same goes with that. So what we imagine, let's go out briefly from the presentation and let's go to another thing. In 2025, we were confronted with the idea in CIVIS, and most particularly, if I use the expression of work packages, with how to change gears, to align what we were doing with the Commission was asking us to do. And it was not in the grant agreement. For those that know the nitty-gritty of a project, a European project, they know what means, oh, it's not in the grant agreement. So it is not in the grant agreement. How we adapt, how we tell the Commission that we know what they are doing, even if they change the rules in the middle of the play, and we follow the rules, but at the same time we are creative. So many groups were beginning following these two calls in 2024 and 2025 to develop micro-credentials, but they have a problem. What is a micro-credential? How I do it? In fact, everyone knew how to do it. Everyone that was proposing, well, the group of Civic Engagement was truly noble, but they did absolutely fantastic work. How to design a module, a subject, a syllabus, sessions, activities, assessments, even small courses. There were micro-programs in this and that university, even in CIVIS. How we do this, what is a micro-credential? So this was something that the Alliance is for, capacity building. The expert group on lifelong learning have done a huge work precisely on capacity building, and everyone has organized, most of you have been in staff weeks these years. So we organized a moment where to think on how to help and support answering questions. Not what is a good course. This is the bottom-up approach that we need. But how to adapt to the envelope. How to make it a product, sorry again for these mercantilist expressions, recognizable everywhere. So we developed modular futures. What it was about? Just simply a module in Moodle for everyone to access and to follow what it is and how it should be. In terms of the envelope and the seal, because it requires a number of technicalities. It requires to define learning outcomes, to define assessment, to define even the way you teach, because there is something that is in the air in this session, that we have different stakeholders, or beneficiaries, or target audience, staff, for the civic engagement, PhD researchers for this. They are different people. Perhaps we have to adapt the teaching. And the Union of Skills, this policy that we try to align in the future of CIVIS, is not only about people that are normal in universities, the people that never are in universities. We had the discussion before. Should we distinguish in terms of admission to micro-credential on age? No. We should distinguish on the level of competences that have acquired first. Perhaps it's upskilling for PhDs that they need to adapt to what? To a changing environment of the use of artificial intelligence. So we may require already have a PhD. Perhaps they are 25, 40, or 65 years old. But perhaps we are designing something that is not for people that go to universities or never went to universities. But they need some digital skills as many others, perhaps at a different level. So all this is the work we prepare in modular futures for anyone who have an idea to project into the envelope. Why is this important in terms of the future of CIVIS? It is important just simply because we need increasingly to prepare our staff for the challenge. If eventually the universities are going to play a role in filling the gaps of the Union of Skills, we need to have our staff prepare to develop that courses that are going to fill that gap. Everyone knows nowadays what is a bachelor, but there was a time that people differ on the definition of bachelor, and we still have different kind of bachelors. 4 years in Spain, 3 years in most of the rest of the countries, and that requires that flexibility when we collaborate. The same goes with here. We need to find a common ground, a common language, the Esperanto, if you wish. I talk about the, no, Esperanto, no. No, we don't need different ways of interpreting ECTS. But we need a Schengen. We need a passport. And the passport for this is the envelope. It's quite hot, isn't it? Anyhow, we will survive. And that brings me to another point, which is connected to the seal. Thank you very much. That connects to something that is the seal. We know what is a diploma. And in the work that Pascal and the expert group on lifelong learning have developed, they arrived to the conclusion that essentially we don't have a joint certificate for these micro-credentials in Europe. Not even our universities can develop that. Besides, the seals is very peculiar because it goes next to the digital transformation that we are suffering. So the European Commission thinks that the skills can be accumulated like you accumulate assets in your bank account. Basically, each citizen of Europe eventually will have an IBAN code where you have all the assets, where imagine there is LinkedIn and you have batches as assets. So those assets should have also a form to be recognized. And that's problematic, as everything that is designed first in Brussels and then give to the universities to provide solutions how to implement it. That certificates or seals are digital too. In the future, all the certificates, even the diplomas, are going to be digital. But these are initially digital. We don't have bachelors before, no, we don't have micro-credentials before this. So it's not to adapt paper diplomas to a new environment. It's just to design everything from the beginning. And this design has to be according to a certain way. So in modular futures, we told everyone wanted to design that, which were the questions they have to ask in order to be prepared to define that seal. Because in the diploma, in the certificate eventually, there will be listed the competencies acquired, like assets in the bank account, recognizable by everyone when you pay with a credit card. The credit card eventually is simply that someone recognizes that you have enough support, financial support, to buy something. It's the same idea here. Though we don't know eventually if we will have a bank account or a bank account with the skills or just a barcode in our necks. And then someone is going to scan the barcode and say, oh yes, this is a lawyer with a bachelor on this, a master on that, and knows a lot on how to use artificial intelligence on this. But putting science fiction aside, this is what we really want to try to understand if we can provide as an alliance and as universities. So modular futures is not about just simply about thinking how to translate into a new envelope what we have been doing for years. Most of you have organized summer schools or winter schools on a specific topic, or a research workshop on another specific topic to translate to society the new results of research. So this is the same thing. The only thing is that we have to define what we do in a certain way to be recognized everywhere. Not just a paper to accumulate papers in, oh, this is my curriculum, oh, how long it is. It's weight enough, it's heavy enough. No, it's just to make sense of the whole learning process, lifelong learning, that for the Commission, every citizen in Europe will have. So modular futures is precisely about that. Remember, when we chose the word modular futures, it was because at the beginning, in 2022, we were talking about modularity. We didn't know at the time that we were going to talk about something else, based on modules, but something else. So it's about how to learn how to do it. The importance of being extremely focused when designing the learning outcomes. What is a learning outcome? We don't know. We don't want people that are physics or lawyers to start a research on what is a learning outcome, how to define it, or so on and so forth. No, we have experts in our universities that can do that for everyone. What we want is just a group of people that have identified that some skills are needed in our staff and translate it into a course. This is the way we have imagined it. At the beginning, it wasn't staff week. Now, there are more than 180 people registered, because in the next calls, as Alejandra mentioned, we got more micro-credentials. Some people were asking, can I have a guide somewhere? Of course, the purpose of CIVIS 2.1 is just to enhance, to make it more amenable, friendly, but is about giving support. If eventually CIVIS is going to have a role, a clear role in filling the gaps of skills that the Union of Skills is telling us, we should be prepared, and we should prepare our staff to do it. We have 2 years. Oh, easy peasy. So, let's back one moment to the presentation. And after this, we can open a round of questions. Where did I put? Oh, yes, here. So, which impact do we expect? Now we have some impact. We have, in total, 12 micro-credentials that in different moments of time are going to be implemented. All of them are going to be published in Agora. Remember that Agora is a new space, for everyone to know what is going on, which are the opportunities we have in CIVIS. For everyone, staff, PhD researchers, but even for people that are not in our universities, because here we cross the walls of the universities. It's not just for our people, not just for our students. The expected impact is what I mentioned. To check if CIVIS has a role to play here. Perhaps we will answer the question, no, let's move to other thing. Fine. It's an extremely legitimate answer. But what if we say yes, and the Commission say, hey, you are doing well. The Commission is saying that we are doing well in BIPs. Oh, we're doing very well in BIPs. But what if in 2 years, the Commission said, look, you are doing very well on this. We don't know how we are going to do it. Now, in terms of the sale, not every university can produce and provide a digital certification alongside the guidelines of the European approach. We can. But we cannot be the certifying engine of the whole alliance. We, as UAM, Universidad Autónoma de Madrid, we certify already 7. In this time, we will have time to discuss if CIVIS is going to be as such an entity to certify, because here, remember, we compete with non-university providers, and we have among our consortium a non-university entity, the CIVIS Association. So are we going to see or to discuss that perhaps the CIVIS Association is going to seal as CIVIS micro-credentials, making a branding, an identity within this lake called Europe? I have no idea, but we have 2 years to discuss it. In time, perhaps we adopt different kind of solutions where the digital transformation in our universities make it available for several universities to produce the certifications and being endorsed by others, because remember that we develop joint micro-credentials that can be issued and certified by one, but endorsed by the others. So for the future employer seeing this certificate, they will say, oh, well, it's not Universidad Autónoma de Madrid. It's Universidad Autónoma de Madrid plus Tübingen plus NQA plus Stockholm that have produced this. And they have developed a narrative why the jointness was important. Like in a joint bachelor and a joint master. But we are going far away because we still have the problem that we are slow adapting our bachelor's, masters, and doctorates. What if we are able to introduce small pieces in our programs, bachelors and so, in the form of micro-credentials, where we can introduce both a certain flexibility to adapt elements of our current official programs to specific needs according to the fields of education, but at the same time, and there is another element, we may think in different ways how make it sustainable our programs and how we involve stakeholders in the design of our programs. And these are the 2 last elements I want to tell you before the rounds of questions. Micro-credentials and the Union of Skills is about something else. In Brussels, they have come to the diagnostics that universities work pretty much alone, and they don't know the needs of the labor market. So they ask us to work with the stakeholders, with future employees, future employers, and so on and so forth, in defining these programs. This was the origin of Open Labs, and most of you know a little bit about Open Labs. In these cases, we have to imagine how to introduce them, both in the design and in the teaching activities. In the assessment, perhaps with some limitations, but we need to involve them. And if we introduce these kind of units in our bachelor's, master's, and joint doctorates, perhaps we will be adapting to reality in small pills programs that we have already defined according to the skills and competences that a lawyer, a doctor, and many others should have according to the system regulations at the national level. What if we are doing that? UAM with Salzburg and Sapienza di Roma are designing a joint bachelor on international tourism. And 10 credits are developed as micro-credentials designed together with hotel chains, with crucial companies, with a specific, you have to define very clearly what you do, because it has to be precisely another thing. It's not only for the students in the bachelor. We want to attract other students that go to the micro-credential just for the micro-credential. And this is the last point I want to mention. Sustainability. Micro-credentials and in general, further education, normally is not sustained by public money in our countries. It's something else that we do in our universities. It's fee-paying. We need our programs to be sustainable. We need to find a way to make attractive academic offer. A joint bachelor, for instance, is extremely expensive to sustain. What if we add elements of sustainability with this? With addition of the fee paying of the students in the bachelor, fee payers for micro-credentials. Then we will produce new avenues for sustainability. We cannot depend on public expenditure constantly. Even Master Mundus is limited for masters. We are changing at this moment the whole ecosystem of the whole programs in few months to the new MMF and the new programs, Erasmus, and so on and so forth. So it's not only about education. It's about how we transform the way we do things in Europe. With this, I believe we have finished, and we have another 12 minutes or so to take any question that you may have about now and about how we are going to do. And just two pieces of information. First, there will be a new call in 2026 for CIVIS academics and staff to propose micro-credentials. We will try to help to imagine how the envelope should look like. So there will be a new round for the possibility to produce more. And now, a new micro-credential is being published in Agora, and in the coming months, new micro-credentials are being published in Agora too, to be for the application process. Some of them are for PhDs. Some of them are for staff. Some of them are for everyone. The main point when defining the micro-credential is you define who is the learner by defining what is the learning outcome. You will not put a difficulty of the level of a PhD to a person who has no formal education yet. This is part of the whole definition of the teaching and learning process in the micro-credential, because the admission and the assessment, the alpha and the omega in the whole process has to be also aligned. But you know more than me how to do that. So please check Agora and all the different offerings that resulting of these goals of education are being put, and the calls are open for recruitment of learners in the coming months. And at the same time, keep an eye on which kind of surprises we will bring into point one if we got the grant. So thank you very much in the name of all the colleagues, and now it's time for you to ask questions. Thank you very much. example of micro-credentials embedded in a joint doctorate. As you know, a joint doctorate, by its definition, it should have, apart from co-tutel agreements and so on and so forth, a common training.
Yeah, I have a request.
Oh, yes.
Don't go up.
Then I will go down.
Go down.
Let's use the bachelor. The students that enroll in a bachelor, well, they have finished higher education. But in the year 2 or 3 of the bachelor, there is a micro-credential open to people that have not admitted in the bachelor, just for the micro-credential. So here, we have to define clearly everything because it should be consistent and coherent in the whole line. After 2 or 3 years in a bachelor, we cannot admit in the micro-credential a person who has not certain education. This is for the upskilling of people that were already getting the diploma. So our alumni, for instance. Our alumni that finished with us, they got the diploma, and 3 years later, there is a new regulation on tourism that is important for everyone working in travel agencies. We have our market of students in our alumni. We developed the micro-credential there, and then which are the requisites for admission? Those, because the learning outcomes should be, and that's another common language we have the European qualifications framework, and we have to use it. When we choose doctorate, let's go for doctorate. When we choose bachelor, when we choose master, and when we choose nothing. Imagine, no, this doesn't work, because I was thinking, for instance, in something that is extremely important at this time. Teachers, primary, secondary schools, and digitalization. How to help them upskill, reskill, and so on and so forth. We may use and develop micro-credentials using DG Comp Edu, a framework on competence on digital competence, digital skills for teachers, which is the requirement that we are going to ask. Perhaps that they are teachers. So we have to add that. But what if we want to take our old people to get some digital competences? Then we will not establish age or so on and so forth. We will think clearly which kind of level, A1, B1, or C1 in digital skills, and define the entrance accordingly. But this is something that you will see that is essential to develop the envelope, to write everything in the envelope to make it working, to have the envelope for the function it should have, which is to be sent through the different post offices in Europe and beyond. I hope I had answered the question. Thank you very much. First and then Tiziana. Well, Tiziana, please.
Maybe it's a question about what you mentioned, but it's not clear to me. So when you talk about reaching out on learning, so reaching this micro-credential on learning, how can CIVIS leverage all learning? So it's not only ordinary students, but professionals or learners, lateral learners that need to upskill their competences, and there might be outside the ordinary university path.
Oh, thank you very much, Tiziana. Let's try to find 2 examples. One within the university, but not in the learning university path, and another one without. Tiziana, can you tell anyone what is your role in Sapienza? Tiziana is confronted at this moment with a huge, as many of the problems, not only Tiziana, with a huge situation. The European Commission has said that every Erasmus process, all the paperwork, should be digital, but digital in a certain way. Not everyone is prepared. Technically, universities need to adapt, but our people working in international offices, they need to know how to work with the new. So you are not in the learning pathway of the university. You are in my opinion, you are essential, Tiziana. But you need your university to answer. It's a European problem, because this is the European Commission establishing a new digital process. So why not giving an answer which is European itself? An answer for the alliance. Develop this according to the needs of our people. So Silvia Arias and the rest of the expert group identify needs and how to develop, how to design a course to fill these needs with the learning of some skills. The same here. But what about those that are not in our universities? Let's pick up again the example of the civic engagement. Are only the staff at the universities those in need to acquire or learn something about civic engagement, or perhaps we should tackle other professionals that are not in the universities too? If they found after their own reasoning that this is the case, and in doing that, the best way is to talk with the stakeholders, to integrate external stakeholders in the whole thing, perhaps eventually the second edition of this is not going to be people working as staff or academics, which is the entry point of the academics. They are academics, so the level of the learning outcomes are adapted to that. But if we talk about people working in NGOs, then they will design the admission requirements accordingly, because they know, and perhaps they will design together with the stakeholders, who is going to be the target group, the future learner. As you see, the envelope is always the same. The only thing is that we need, and say we, not me, we, the Alliance, let me dream a little bit, the Alliance, we need to support you to channel your dream into a reality. In this case, we are talking about micro-credentials. There are many other things that CIVIS is doing. It's fine, Tiziana? Thank you very much.
Yeah, hello. I'm from the University of Civic. A question for the Prof. Panel, perhaps, or you can answer it. You talked about ECTS and describing ECTS through micro programs. I just don't know how it is in the other countries, but generally ECTS or a description of ECTS is heavily regulated. So it's not that perhaps we like to assign ECTS to something, but I just want to ask everybody, how does in your country the ascription of ECTS to a single course or module, which is distinct from a study program, which is regulated by the government and accredited already signed off. How does it work? Do you have problems with that, or does the legal framework support the ascription to ECTS to just a single course? Because in our regulation, micro-programming stackables are not feasible for ECTS, and we have huge legal framework problems.
I know. Anyone wants to tackle?
I can at least give you some information about Austria, where I'm from. In Austria, there is one ECTS is a workload of 25 hours. That was originally foreseen by the Universitätsgesetz 2002, the law governing the universities and university studies and so forth. But only recently, meaning, well, a week ago, only recently the government passed a new law on on leaves you may take with support from the the unemployment insurance. In reality, you can take a leave for further education in your job. That had been usually half a year ago, until half a year in, I do not know, 5, 7, or 10 years or so, and has been changed now. And what they did for this, to apply for such a leave, is that you have at least 20 ECTS, otherwise the leave won't be admitted. So, and what they did then, they said, okay, it is the ECTS as it is in the university law. So it is 25 hours of workload. This is rather simple, it is straightforward, and I think it may work. And it is independent on the form the course takes, whether it should be a micro-credential or something offered by a private company, I do not know, some IT crash course, anything like that. It's 25 hours and that's it. easy, straightforward.
Yeah, thank you very much, because the same is in many other contexts. But as we are approaching the end of the time of the session, I'm going to add a perspective for you. You don't want a lawyer, you don't want to stand it up. Normally, when we join education, we need something, a paper that clarifies that everyone understands everything and puts out the particularities and technicalities of each country. We call it a consortium agreement. What is a consortium agreement? A document not to be used ever. It's a document to plan that everyone is in the same state. So we have the same understanding, 25 hours. If everyone understands that this is 25 hours of workload, and you contribute with 25 hours of workload into the micro-credential, I don't think we are going to have any problem. But this is something, oh, we have a guest here. You know, in Spain it's the same, but you have something like this. I didn't think about it. No, it's not. And tomorrow we will get a postcard or a card in the pigeon box. So talking about preparing envelopes and seal them accordingly, perhaps we are doing the correct way today. So that's the basis of when anything that we are trying to do jointly, we need to see all the specificities and technicalities in each country to get the joint product something that everyone is comfortable with. It is a problem? No. It is an obstacle? No. It's just simply that we have to listen to our partners. We have the same situation as Austria with ECTS, but it doesn't mean that we should assume that everyone. Then a consortium agreement is a tool to listen and never apply it. But it's a tool to listen that we have to keep in mind that despite the fact that we joined a European alliance, whatever it is, and the Erasmus program has promised to define it, we are still very different. And it's not bad, because Esperanto was, it was a terrible thing. No, I just prefer German. I don't speak a word in German, but it's a lovely language, isn't it? So all these things can be solved in the consortium agreement. And it's something that we have to negotiate each time when we produce joint education in the alliance. So, with Butterfly included, I thank you very much in the name of Silvia, Ruth, Alejandra, and Nadia Fernandez de Pinedo, who was the person who had to be here, because I've been improvising the whole last 1 hour and a half, and it has been exhausting, I can tell you. But Nadia is in a very important meeting with very important people, so she sent the less important people to be with you, and I hope at least, even with me leading a little bit this session, you had enjoyed it, you have taken some ideas back to your countries, and perhaps you will send us emails to continue developing some of those that we have described here to you during this 1 hour and a half. Thank you very much.